Infinity's Designs is a full-service marketing and brand development company catered towards your apparel and product development needs. Our company specializes in customized company logos, signage, or decals for doors, windows, and automobiles. We also offer graphic designs for all of your apparel needs. Infinity's Designs can help you with your marketing, branding, and promotional items. We also offer masks representing your college or university. When you partner with Infinity's Designs, the possibilities are endless. For more information, visit our website at infinitiesllc.com.
Hey, James J.T. Thompson. Hey, this is James J.T. Thompson. Welcome to the Elite Life show here on TNE Networks. We got a very special show here today. We're going to be speaking with Senator Mike Fanning. Looking forward to him coming on the show, you know what I'm saying, to really chop it up about a few things, you know what I'm saying, going on right now. The pulse right now in our culture and our community is very interesting. So looking forward to chopping it up with Senator Fanning in a few minutes. But welcome to the Elite Life Show. I'm your host, James J.T. Thompson. Again, so much going on in the culture right now. Let's start off with this. If you want to get in touch with us here at Elite Life, just go to the email elitelife57 at gmail.com. Also, you can go to the website and check us out at TNEnetworks.com. That's www.tnenetworks.com. Check us out, and also go to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube page, and check us out, y'all, over there at TNE Networks. On the YouTube channel, and subscribe to the page. You can check out this show as well as Brave Talk Show and many other shows we got. Here to come. So looking forward to that. Again, the big thing, the elephant in the room is the culture right now. A lot of stuff going on. Just pray for our country, our city right now, because a lot of hurt. People are fed up. It's a lot, that we're dealing with. And, it's coming out. Frustration is coming out. People are reacting. It's just a different time right now. In our country, we gotta, just really dig deep and just say a prayer, like no other. Just really hoping and healing, asking for healing, God, and justice, just an understanding what we had as far as the culture. And I'm just really jumping into a peace right now and just asking God to touch us, give us everything that we need in order to, to get through these times and help bring understanding, as well as we're sitting there trying to figure it out. We're going to go to our first break, y'all. Stay tuned to the Elite Life Show. We're going to bring on our guest, Senator Mike Fanning, right after these messages.
Hey everybody, it's your girl Danny Nicole. I am one of the hosts of the Brave Talk Show. So guess what? We're offering an opportunity to all entrepreneurs to promote or advertise their business on our show. For more information, please contact us at t.n.e.networksllc@gmail.com or visit our website at www.tnenetworks.com. Hey, have you seen the show yet? Check us out on YouTube. And if you like it, hit like and then subscribe. How about that?
All right, y'all. We are back out of the break, and we are here with Senator Mike Fanning. Welcome to the Elite Life Show.
Great to be here. I'm glad to be on here with you, James. Appreciate you.
No doubt. Senator, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to our audience here at Elite Life.
Well, I am a former teacher. It's my 27th year in education. My first term as your senator, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Grew up in the church and have enjoyed worshiping in churches with many of you that are on the line now. I am married, have a 25-year-old son, and I am married to the most beautiful woman in the entire world, and my best friend, Stephanie, as well. And so good to be on your show. Nice to know you as well. And I appreciate you having me on your show that we've talked about before.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to get into it. It's very important. We're in some very important times right now. First thing I want to touch on with you is about the coronavirus and your take on what we need to do here, especially in South Carolina, to continue to get where we need to be as a state.
Absolutely. And the coronavirus is real. You're going to have some folks that are trying to make some politics out of this. There's no politics in the coronavirus. The coronavirus is real. It is a disease. Now, when I say it's real, our God is real. And I'm not saying that we should live our lives in fear, but people deserve the truth. And the truth is, this is not the flu. It's not anything connected to the flu. This has killed 100,000 Americans already. It's touching every corner of the world. There are not many events in the history of the world that have touched every single corner of the earth. The flood did, obviously, back in the days of Noah. But even World War I, World War II, that was not the entire world. This is touching every single country in every single village in the entire world. Right here in our communities, Fairfield has one of the biggest hot spots in the state. York is also one of the biggest hot spots in the state. One of the reasons Chester numbers have been down and we haven't been doing enough testing, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But we have almost 500 deaths in Chester. We have averaged between 250 and 350 new cases every single day. And so this is a real pandemic. It is worldwide. We have to take precautions. There will not be a vaccine at least until this fall. So the only thing we can do is maintain the social distancing. This is an airborne virus. We're realizing now that the touching is not quite the more important way that it's transmitted. It's more air, which is why wearing masks are so important. Maintaining social distancing is so important. We hope that if we continue to maintain social distancing, taking precautions, not going out if we don't have to, we're hoping within a month we may see the numbers finally start to come down, and the transmittability of the disease, the transference of the disease, should go back down to something close to zero, and we'd be at a new normal. We've been working with churches. We had over 100 pastors on a conference call this past Thursday from Fairfield, Chester, and York, with officials from DHEC and our state's top epidemiologist, Dr. Traxler, about looking at ways that we can reopen our churches. But we are going to have to take some precautions to allow this pandemic to die. We need the virus to stop being able to transmit. A lot of folks don't realize, but the only way a virus can stay alive if it can keep jumping from host to host. And if we maintain social distance and we wear a mask, eventually the virus will die out. There is a threat that it could come again in the fall. Our scientists are working underway to try to make sure we have a vaccine so we are ready for the fall. We are looking forward to restarting schools in this fall. But right now, we need to find some ways to allow this pandemic, this virus, to die out. A lot of people are debating, James, they're debating, should we save the economy or should we worry about the COVID-19? And I hate to tell you, but as with most things, both sides are right. We do have a recession that we're about to enter into that will make 2008's recession look like a piece of cake. We're about to head into one of the biggest recessions since the Great Depression in the 30s. The joblessness rate in America today and in South Carolina is already as high as it's been since the 1930s. And so we do have a recession. And I hope in a minute we can talk about that. But I do want the folks to know those people saying we need to get back to work because we're hitting a recession, they're correct. But the other side is also correct. And that is if we go back too quickly and we reopen everything too quickly, then this disease will spike again. And it could take us another 2 months to get back down to zero. And while we do want to make sure people get a job, we also have to make sure they live, because if someone dies, they're never going to get the job again. So this pandemic is real. The disease is real. We do have to worry about that. And I know you want to ask me a little bit about the recession that's about to happen, because that's real as well. And we've got to find a way to walk a balance, protect people's safety while still ensuring that our economy is strong.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely going to ask you about the recession, but I want to ask you about schools first. How possible is it that we can have our kids in school safely and not have to worry about a bigger spread?
Excellent question. In fact, it's the number one question on my mind. You speak to my heart because, as you know, remember, I came out of the classroom, and that's where I spent 27 years. Teachers are desperately wanting to get back with their kids. The kids are desperately wanting to get back with the teachers. And can I tell you something else? Parents are ready to get rid of their kids and send them back to the school. So we all want it to happen. But you asked the question, is we need to do it in a way that doesn't cause the second surge. You think about it. If we work hard to get this virus to die out over the summer, and then we know airborne viruses usually come back again in the fall, and we all of a sudden, to your question, start putting hundreds of thousands of millions of kids back in school, we're begging for that. So the CDC has put out guidelines that have said if we follow these guidelines, you can reopen schools safely. That's the good news. Are you ready for the bad news?
Yes,
it's
sir.
impossible to do. I mean, these guidelines are absolutely impossible given the certain circumstances. For example, they want to make sure that kids maintain social distancing throughout the day. Now, some of it we're going to be able to do. So, for example, we are looking at doubling up on bus routes, if that makes sense. So you may have a bus run at 5, 6 in the morning, pick up half the kids, take them to school, and then pick up the other half on the second route, so that on a school bus, kids are maintaining social distancing. It ain't a good solution, but it would be a safety solution for a couple months until it dies. That we can do. But what we can't do, and lunch we can do, because lunch, we can have lunch almost the entire day, recess the entire day, and allow fewer kids out at recess at the time. And we're even looking at bringing lunches to the classrooms rather than sending them to the cafeteria. So those are some of the things that we can do. They aren't easy, but there's something we can do. The problem, though, gets to class sizes. As you know, we've talked about this before, you and I have, is South Carolina has one of the largest class sizes in the country. We've got laws on the book that mandate class sizes. And some folks are calling me saying, Fanning, you need to pass a law to lower the class sizes. I don't. You know why? We need to enforce the law that's already on the books. We waived class sizes in 2008 because we were in a recession. I'm cool with that. We had to do it. But every other state in 2009, 10, 11, 12 started bringing that back in line and enforcing class sizes. We've never in South Carolina since the recession spent the money it would take to hire the teachers it would take to reduce class sizes. And so the number one thing the CDC is mandating, the number one thing we know we have to do to make things safe is we've got to lower class sizes, because there ain't but so many ways you can socially distance 30 kids in a small little classroom. You give a teacher 15 kids, she can do it. And I want to share something with you because I'm going to need your help. When we come back in about 2 weeks, we're going to
Yeah.
vote on how we spend $200 million. And
Wow.
there's a proposal by the state superintendent of education, Molly Spearman, who wants to spend that $200 million to add 6 days to the beginning of the school year to help catch kids up on learning. And we'd go to school 6 more days. And you can understand that. They got cheated out of 3 months. We need some time to get them up. The problem is there's no research that shows that in 6 days, teachers can catch kids up. Number one. Number two, I would rather spend that $200 million to reduce class sizes. Because if we reduce class sizes, not only can we keep them safe, but if you give me 14 kids in a class, I can catch them up while I'm teaching them. You give me 30 kids in a class and I'm maintaining order and I'm just trying to get through the school year. So there's going to be a priority fight on the floor of the Senate and the House the third week in June of how we spend the federal COVID relief money. I'm advocating that instead of adding days to the school year, which I get the point on, we focus all our resources on reducing class sizes. That'll enable teachers to teach kids where they are because they got smaller kids, but it'll also allow us to have that safety in the classroom, which I think was your question.
Yes. Yeah, definitely makes sense on that. And we definitely, this will help get that out there. What we need to do, as far as the public and, in supporting that. I'm going to ask you this. The other concern is we got all this talk about sports coming back up. You know what I'm saying? I have a son that plays high school football. Where's the priority at where it pertains to the safety of these young men as we try to put together back a plan to, get back to that as well?
You are absolutely right. And there's 2 things that are a priority. One is we in South Carolina love our football. And we live for football. And I say high school football. Well, we live for middle school football, peewee football, and that is a priority. The other priority, though, needs to be the safety of the athletes. And so I will tell you that the high school league has several committees of coaches that are working feverishly on a plan that when we start the training back would go into effect, meaning that if we at some point this summer, we are going to allow schools to begin to have football practices in the summer. But what we have coaches working on a plan that would have to be approved first that would say, how are you going to follow the CDC guidelines? Because the CDC guidelines has literally health and safety guidelines for things such as football. And so some of the things they're looking at is having only positions working together in the summer so that you'd only work out with small groups of 5 to 7. And with those small groups, you would then, you'd practice social distancing as much as you could, but you'd also have lots of opportunities for regular washing. And remember, soap and water works good as well, but having regular as well. The coaches, though, are having a tough time because the small groups wouldn't necessarily mean the quarterback's here, the running back's here, and the wide receivers here, because quarterbacks need to throw to a wide receiver, do they not? And offensive linemen need to block defensive linemen. So they are working on a plan that would figure out how do we divide our teams into small enough groups, but still be able to do some of the practices that are going on. So the CDC has developed guidelines. The NCAA is looking at those guidelines, but also the South Carolina High School League that would monitor middle school and high school ball that you and I are talking about to make sure that when we do go back to practice, we have regulations in place to ensure the safety of those athletes. Excellent point.
Definitely makes sense. And let's move to the recession and kind of explain to people how real this recession is and what can we expect during that time period.
I'm glad you're asking that question because you remember about 2 months ago, the lieutenant governor out of Texas made a statement and said, maybe some old people are going to have to die because we need to get back to work so that our children don't inherit a bunch of debt. And that was obviously a horrible thing to say because we never want anybody to die. But he was making the case that we do have to worry about the economy as well. Now, I tend to side on the side of if somebody's dying, the economy really doesn't matter. But you still have to worry about both. It's not an either or. And so we are entering into right now a recession that they predict most economists believe will last about 2 years. and it will be far worse than the 2008 recession that we remember, which is why we were able to get some stimulus money. We'll get to it in a second, but I think we'll get some additional stimulus maybe in August, because this is going to be a long time. But this recession is supposed to be as bad as any since the 1930s Great Depression. A couple of reasons. Number one is when you shut things down, remember, it doesn't just impact the workers and the plant while it's shut down. It impacts it for months to follow, because remember, once you start manufacturing again, it still takes you a couple months to produce and sell a product, if that makes sense, that then you can make money off of to pay the workers. And so one of the reasons that the Republicans, for example, were wanting it to get back to work quickly, to reopen the state quickly, is if GT Tire, for example, in Chester, if it only shuts down for a month, then production doesn't lag too much. People are still going to buy tires. We can keep GT Tire going. The fear was if we shut down GT Tire for 6 months and then they reopen in a gigantic recession where people are buying a lot less. And remember, GT Tire is headquartered in China, where the coronavirus began, that the worry is that GT Tire may not be able to reopen. And then we permanently lose the job gains that we have. So we've had job losses. Right now in South Carolina, we have over 500,000 people that have filed for unemployment for the first time in the last 2 months. Our jobless rate in South Carolina is 16%, which is the highest at any point since the Great Depression. On top of that, as you know, remember the stimulus checks, $1,200. And by the way, if anybody's listening right now, if they hadn't got their stimulus check, I called on Friday, 40% of Americans still haven't got it yet. So that doesn't mean you're not going to get it, but it's just taking that long to get those checks out. But we printed $2 trillion worth of money to put those stimulus checks out. Now, we did it because we need people not to lose their homes, correct? We need people to have money to make sure that if they did get furloughed at work, and unemployment took a while to stop getting it, then we needed them to be able to have some money to pay the bills to make sure they lose their homes. The problem, though, is when the government prints $2 trillion worth of money it doesn't have, that devalues the dollar. Because now instead of having this amount of dollars, you've got this amount plus 2 trillion more dollars. And that is what is inflation. And so we are going to see in the coming years inflation that we hadn't really seen inflation go up much since the 70s, early 80s. We're going to see inflation go up, which basically means for our younger viewers, the dollar ain't going to be able to buy what it used to could buy. Things are going to start costing more, and your raises at work ain't going to go up enough to keep up with the cost of goods and services. So we're going to see inflation increase. We're going to see unemployment continue to increase, which again is going to lead us to this biggest recession that we've had. So Congress has taken some positive steps. As you know, unemployment has been supplemented by an additional $600 a week. And this is huge. It's really huge in South Carolina. The reason it's so much is it had to go up by $600 a week in New York, because as you know, things cost so much more in New York. And they had to treat everybody fairly. So it means a whole lot more to us in South Carolina. We have already in South Carolina paid out $1 billion with a B extra unemployment in the last 2 months because that many people are unemployed. And before we leave this phone call today, I hope you'll let me throw a phone number out there, my phone number out there for people to call if they're having trouble getting unemployment. I want to help them. But this is huge, is that many people don't have a job. And then the cost of the goods and services. So we are really getting ready to go into recession. We are desperately worried. We've heard that big businesses are possibly not reopening. Small businesses, the Coal Yard restaurant up in York has just announced that it won't reopen because it won't be able to reopen in that economy. So we're seeing that some businesses won't reopen, and we're worried that workers won't have a chance to get a job. So we've got to make sure that folks are ready. And if I can, before we go to another question, I do want to you and I talk scripture quite a bit. I want to remind folks of, remember the scripture where God gave us the vision through his prophet that we were going to have 7 years of famine, but we were going to have 7 years of plenty first. And so he urged us to store up, can I get an amen, in our silos, grain for 7 years to prepare for the 7 years of famine to follow. I ask you, when you get that stimulus check, and those that might be getting unemployment check, please save that money. as much of it that you can, unless you're paying off debts, because this economy is going to get worse before it gets better. That is the reason that we're issuing the stimulus money. We got to make sure that we prepare our folks for the struggle that's ahead economically.
Definitely. And you did mention the fact that there probably will be another stimulus in the fall, correct?
Yes. There's another stimulus bill being debated. Now, I'm in the state house, and so this is in the U.S. Congress. They're talking about this. There's a big debate going on right now between the Republicans and the Democrats. They're going to come together and pass a stimulus package. They're arguing over what goes in it, if that makes any sense. So one of the things that we keep hearing about it is forgiveness of student loans. And I think just when I said that, you and I got some amens over that one. I don't know if that's going to make it in the final version, but the Republicans are really wanting to make sure that the stimulus package that passes this summer contains a lot of help for businesses. The Democrats are saying we want a package that contains a lot of help for workers. And what we're going to get is what we always get, is we get a compromise that's going to be, it does look after businesses. We hope that this time it doesn't look after big businesses. Remember that first round of those stimulus loans, the big corporations ate up all the money and the small business didn't get it. So we hope that the business will be small businesses, but we also think that there will be another stimulus check that will come out sometime this summer that will help, because this economy is going to get worse before it gets better. We expect that to happen. I don't think it's going to happen before July. But I do expect another stimulus bill to happen in the middle of the summer.
So let me ask you this. When, I'm around several people and I'm talking to people on a daily basis, what word would you say to encourage people to get out and vote? Because that seems to be a fine line. Some people don't see the reasoning to do so. And I keep advocating for the fact that your vote counts, and it's very important to do so. So let's get it straight from you, Senator Fanning. How important is it for us to get out and vote?
There is nothing more important than that. Worshiping our Lord and Savior might be more important than that. But second to that is, remember, our preachers tell us all the time, faith without works is dead. And so I do believe, we talked about how the COVID crisis is real and how the recession is real. But I also believe that my God is real. He's real in my soul. I know that I grew up singing that song, that God is real. But God wants us to put our faith into action. And so faith without works is dead. We've got to if we're going to pray to God to fix our country, if we want to pray to God to melt the heart of Pharaoh so that our leader will listen to his people, then we need to make sure we're willing to do what it is that God's given us the opportunity to do. So we live in a country that not only allows people to vote, but whoever the people are that vote, they're going to elect our new leaders. If we don't vote, we're allowing other people to elect our new leaders, and they won't have the same priorities we'll. So I mentioned that two ways. Number one is in November, there's a big election. And so the leader of this country will be on the ballot. Who leads this country in the future is going to be on the ballot. And that is huge for the future of this country. But you and I have talked about this before. The elections that are closest to the people are even more important. You're going to be far more impacted by your school board, your county council, your state senator, your state representatives. And so there's an election coming up on June 9th, a week from Tuesday. And most folks don't even know we're having an election on Tuesday, June 9th.
That's true.
That election will make a huge difference, because you may not ever see the President of the United States, but you're going to see me, and you can hold me accountable, because I was in your church last week, and I've either done what you've told me to do or I haven't done what you've told me to do. And you got a chance on June 9th to vote. Not only am I on the ballot, but there are other folks on the ballot on June 9th. And it is our obligation to do that. And I think if God has given us the ability to, number one, come together, touch an agreement, and ask him for anything, and he will deliver. Part of his delivery is he's empowered us to go to the polls and then vote for folks that he's given us the window. So I am begging our folks, please go and vote. The second reason your question is so important is down there in Columbia. Remember, this is just my first term down there. And I've realized that when issues come up, I'll have colleagues that say, them people don't vote. They're raising a ruckus right now, but those people don't vote. And whoever that might be. Sometimes they say it about teachers, right? Is that teachers talk a big game, but teachers don't vote. Well, it can make us mad, But the answer is to do what? Vote.
Vote.
If every teacher showed up and voted in block, we'd have reduced class sizes. If every group of citizens that has been disenfranchised by society today were to show up in block, we wouldn't have the problems that we have today. We have injustice in our courts, but we have injustice in our courts because the same old people are picking the same old judges every single time. If we showed up in block, you could see some change. So I appreciate the question. I think that the time is right now to take action. And while nobody else is at the ballot, you go and let your vote count. Your vote's going to count twice as much because nobody else is going to vote.
Definitely. And we here at Elite Life definitely endorse you, Senator Fanning, and want to know this. Why should somebody vote Fanning on the ticket June 9th?
Two reasons. Number one is I hope that folks would know that I attempt to go to every single gathering of 2 or more people, not just when I run, but every day for the last 4 years. I have attempted to be wherever people are. The reason I do it is not just because I enjoy the food that's in a lot of the events. The reason I do it is how on earth am I to know what it is that is bothering people if I'm not there? If I am never with people, then there will never be an opportunity for people to let me know these are our 3 most important things. So that's one reason. The second reason is I have talked from the very beginning that we need to make real significant change. So for example, in Fairfield County is 75% African American. Mm-hmm. When I got elected, we had 6 judges in Fairfield County. 5 of the 6 were white in a county that's 75% African American. That wow. County, Fairfield County, had never had a majority African American court, ever. Mm-hmm. To this day, I've had a chance to make 1 round of appointments. Now, to this day, 5 of the 6 are black. 5 black, 1 white. My point is, we could make a difference. I knew that from the folks in Fairfield County, one of the top things we needed was to make sure that our court system looked like the people of Fairfield County, that when our school kids looked at their judges, they saw not somebody that's a friendly face, they saw that I can be a judge one day because that person on that bench looks like me. And we did it. We changed it. And there are so many other things like that that need to be done. When we look at, and in a few minutes we'll talk about Minneapolis, when we look at the national tragedies that have happened, the solutions, even though we do need a president that's willing to speak out, but we also need local folks willing to change what happens locally, because the breakdown that took place really was a breakdown in Minneapolis. Now, it's a similar breakdown that's happening in cities and counties all across the world, but it starts with electing people that are willing to make change, that are willing to listen to people and to make change. I have done that the last 4 years. I want to do it the next 4 years, but we need to start holding our local folks accountable and saying, you tell me, we know what the sheriff's department is like up at Minneapolis, Minnesota. What's our sheriff like down home? Because in South Carolina, we elect the sheriff. So we have accountability. It comes down to, as you said, are we willing to put our money where our mouth is? Are we ready to put our feet to action and hold people accountable? I've enjoyed getting to spend time with folks. One last answer to your question. When I got here, my goal was not to find the best office and to find the best parking place for my old yellow pickup truck. My goal was to find out who was the best administrative staff, because down there, the staff exist and they've been around for a long time. And I fought to make sure that I had the most experienced staff working for me. And then I opened offices in each county and hired the best staff in each county, so that when I am at your children's middle school football game and you do tell me if there's a problem, then we've got somebody that we can call that does nothing but constituent service that gets that problem solved. And so what I wanted to do is make sure, I've got the best staff of any senator in the state of South Carolina. And the reason some of the solutions to people's problems are getting done ain't because of me, it's because I got a good staff that is doing it. I'm able to hear from the folks what the problem is, and then we're able to get to a staff to hopefully solve that. So I hope that on June 9th, I'll get a chance to keep working for the people of York and Chester and Fairfield counties.
I think that's really important. I think the one thing that makes a great impression on me is that you are present and you're not just talking about it. You are here. They see the footsteps of your action. And I think that's terribly important, especially in the times that we're in. I want to get to.
And you're so right. I hate to interrupt, but don't we tell that to parents? Remember, we tell a dad, we say, it ain't the money, it's be there. Isn't that the number one thing about a parent is? The number one thing about a parent is to be there. If you're in a relationship, is the number one thing a marriage counselor will tell you is what? Be there. And so one thing I've tried to keep as my priority is to be there. So I thank you for the chance of being able to be here with you and reach so many people today.
Yeah, and it's important. You brought up teachers, and my wife is a teacher, and I remember her commenting to me just how much she appreciated you advocating for all the teachers in the state of South Carolina and just standing in and being a voice. And I was just thinking about just how terribly important that is, to know that you have somebody actually advocating and standing up for you, down in Columbia. So we definitely appreciate that for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. And you bring up a good point. It's not because the people in Columbia hate teachers. It's that the majority of people aren't teachers. And therefore, when I get a bill across my desk about insurance reform, I got to call some folks because I hate to admit this to you. But as your senator, I know about this much about insurance reform. And so I have to lean on others and lean on experts. But we haven't had people in Columbia that are veteran educators. And so one of the biggest thrills for me in the Columbia is when a bill comes up and I'm able to take the floor and say, please tell me, what am I going to tell my teachers when they have to change their classroom tomorrow because of this boneheaded piece of legislation? And if you notice, we had a bill, as you know, you and I've talked about this, we had a bill that was written 2 years ago by a group of non-educators. Not a single teacher was at the table. And it was the biggest education reform bill in 20 years. And every teacher in the state said it was a bad bill. House passed it 113-4, got to the Senate, and it was still running like a freight train. And it wasn't because of legislators hating teachers. It was because the legislators weren't teachers. Now, they weren't listening to them. And so on June the 9th, the first day of session, they took up a bill that every teacher in the state of South Carolina, remember that march on the state capitol last year?
I do.
10,000 teachers showed up against this bill. And the Senate tried to pass it. I filibustered that bill for 2 months. I broke the record for the longest filibuster in the history of South Carolina. Filibustered for 2 months. They finally set me down, but then the coronavirus closed the Senate, and so we killed that bill. But that was a little help from God on that one. But the reason I did it wasn't because I'm some kind of a good guy. It's because I'm a teacher. And as a teacher, I was able to listen to and articulate that. And that's why we need more regular folks from regular professions down there in Columbia that can say, I'm a truck driver. And let me tell you how this bill would impact truck drivers. I'm a nurse. Let me tell you how this bill would create nurses. And so I appreciate you bringing up education. That is so important in the state of South Carolina. And to have a massive education reform bill written without a single teacher at the table. And then once teachers told them it was bad, we still rammed it down their throats. That needs to change. Wow.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to go back to something. How important are essential workers during COVID right now? A lot of them, are working and just going about things, daily, being on the front lines. But how is it that down in Columbia, what is the talk and the thought process on our essential workers?
And you are so right. As you think about it, we as a state decided that we needed to shut down the state because people were dying from the disease. But then we told our essential workers, except y'all got to keep working and putting yourself at risk. And then we've taken no action to other than some shields in stores to help them. So the good news is that there's not really a state way to make this happen, but there are federal ways that this could happen. So we've got two hopeful ways that we could compensate essential workers for what we call maybe hazardous duty pay. If we're going to ask you to be out there in one of the worst health crises in the history of the world, then we need to make sure you're compensated. So two ways. Number one is in that next stimulus bill that you and I were talking about, the Democrats in Congress are pushing for hazard pay for essential workers all across the nation. So that's our big hope is going to happen. But the second is South Carolina has been allocated resources at the state level to over $1.8 billion. Most of it has got very specific things that's going to schools and whatnot. But Senator Darrell Jackson has already crafted an amendment that would look at carving some of that money out for essential workers. I've already signaled my intent to co-sponsor that with Senator Jackson. But this is why June 9th is so important. We need to elect people so we got enough people to vote to make sure that part of that money goes to our essential workers. And our essential workers aren't just our nurses that are sacrificing their lives on the line every day. But think about our grocery store clerks. I mean, they've never been able to quit working, have they? And I mean, we have to have groceries, and we haven't done anything to protect them. So finding a way to make sure that we have some additional pay for our essential workers are so key. And then another thing in with that is making sure that businesses enforce protections of those essential workers. I get calls all the time and find out that a business has had 8 new cases of the coronavirus in the last week, yet they hadn't reported it and they hadn't changed anything at their business. And people are scared because if you walk off the job, you can't collect unemployment because you would be protecting your life. So we've got to find ways to enforce reasonable practices on our businesses while we ensure that there's some mechanism to make sure that our essential workers get paid.
Yeah, and it was, reasoning behind the question is I have family members that are working in nursing homes as well as group homes and things of that nature. And a lot of them are frustrated because they're not seeing, the balance of, okay, I'm masked, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing. And that, but as far as compensation for not bringing this back home to my family, a lot of people are frustrated. So I was wanting to get a clear answer. And you gave that on that there is some hope, as far as that happening. And I really appreciate you being.
Yes. We have 2 ways we work for it. Number one is in the stimulus bill at the federal level, which means we need to contact both our U.S. senators and our U.S. congressmen. And then the other path is Senator Darrell Jackson is already in the process of crafting an amendment. He has announced it. I have announced my intent to co-sponsor with him. And that is using existing money to try to do that as well. But I'm so glad you brought up nursing homes because I failed to do that earlier. 1 out of every 3 deaths in South Carolina due to COVID-19 has been in a nursing home. That has been a huge crisis. Now, I do want to give DHEC some props the last 2 weeks. I hope you'll ask your family members about this. But I think in the last 2 weeks, you've seen some improvement in terms of extra focus on nursing homes. But up until 2 weeks ago, your relatives were left on their own. There was no additional help from DHEC. They were trapped. Now, the only thing we were doing is we were trying not to let people in and out. But that means we were trapping your essential care workers in the nursing home with people that had COVID-19 and were dying. And that was not a good solution. I do think that we at least have seen in the last 14 days increased attention. We've certainly seen increased testing, which helps us isolate because we weren't even testing. We were ranked 50th in the country in testing. Which, as a social studies teacher, I try to remind my students we ain't got 50 states, and being ranked 50 ain't good. 50th in testing. Now, here we are 2.5 weeks later. We're now up to ranked, I think, 26th in the country. So we've improved in the last 2 weeks. Focus on nursing home. By tomorrow, we should have had testing in every nursing home in the state. But the next level is what do we do, to your point, to make sure that our nursing home staff aren't just protected. That was step 1. But also compensated to make sure that whether it's hazard duty pay or something, they have put their lives on the line. Yeah,
that's true. And definitely we appreciate everything that you're doing. Again, you talking about advocating and really showing the people what you're supposed to do when you're an elected official. Man, I salute you on so many different levels, man. God is definitely, put the right type of spirit down there. And you don't have to worry about not having the vote of anybody that I'm advocating for you on the ground. Like, hey, this is the guy that you want to vote for because you want real person down there advocating and really, just talking to the pulse of the people. Senator Mike Fannin is who you want.
Thank you.
Let me touch on this. We're watching, we've seen Minneapolis, Minnesota. We've seen, matter of fact, here in Rock Hill, South Carolina, we had a peaceful protest led by Reverend C.T. Kirk yesterday morning. No acts of violence, hundreds of people, lots of diversity. They were there. I mean, it was a beautiful picture. And I kind of looked at it as an example to, to other cities that this is how it's supposed to be done. I want to get your take and I also want to get, what can we continue to do in order to right the injustices that are in this country.
You are so correct. I do applaud. Pastor Kirk is phenomenal. You talk about somebody that's grounded in the community. He was phenomenal, and he had a great team of folks that made yesterday happen. And obviously, Columbia at the State House and Columbia at the State House was also a very peaceful protest. After the rally, we saw some very unfortunate incidents occur, but the rally at the State House was a very peaceful protest, showing that enough is enough. I mean, we've been talking about this as a country for a long time, and that brings you to your question. To me, I think the root of it is we've been talking about police brutality, specifically African-American males being targeted. We've been talking about it for a long time, but we haven't been doing anything about it. And I think that's the reason you're seeing a lot of angst is we can't allow this to be something that as a nation we all come together and say this was bad. With George Floyd, it was bad, it was wrong. But then we don't change. And then the same thing happens again. I have an African-American male son, black male son, 25 years old, and I am scared to death. My parents weren't scared to death about me. I am scared to death about him. My wife, his mom, is scared to death. The world that we live in today, it ain't enough to come together and say that was wrong. That's a first step. And Dr. King taught us that is a first step. But we've got to take the steps to make sure if it was wrong that it doesn't happen again. And so there's multiple things that we need to do. The first thing I argue we need to do is we need to make sure that our judicial system in South Carolina looks like the people of South Carolina. This past year, we elected judges in the General Assembly. Remember, in South Carolina, we actually elect the judges.
Yes.
And all but one judge we elected was white. In a state that is 1/3 African-American, all but one judge we elected was white. 2 years ago, we had an election where we had 2 African-American judges in contested races. And we only were able to get one of those 2. And I don't know if you remember, there was a group of us that walked off the floor. Because what does that say? I know that we need a colorblind system of justice for those in the courtroom that are but as a teacher, I want a colorblind system of judges for that 6-year-old, that 7-year-old, that 8-year-old. Because how on earth do I tell them you need to make sure you obey the police officer, they're your friend, they're going to help us get where we need to go, the system's on your side, how can I tell them that when we look at what we've got? And so we need to do a better job. And so that's why I focus, for example, in my Fairfield, where I had the sole power to elect judges, to appoint judges there. We need to do a better job. And the second thing we need to do is we need to encourage more of our folks to put their name forth to be a judge, because most of the people that applied to be a judge were white. And I would argue that's probably because of the systematic way of why am I going to apply for a judge when all you pick are white judges? And so we need to reverse that. And we need to make sure that we systematically, right now where there's a political will to say what happened in Minneapolis was wrong, we need to seize on that political will. And we need to make sure that we change that judicial system to make sure the judges are in place to make sure that that's fair. So we aren't hearing that, well, maybe the cop didn't disobey a law. I mean, those types of things shouldn't be happening because we got judges in place. The second thing, though, we need to do is we need to make sure that we have better screening for those that we hire in law enforcement. That needs to take place. Now, in fairness, there aren't many people willing to go into law enforcement. So part of what I need to do as a senator is I need to make sure I'm looking at the pay of law enforcement officers. And we need to set it at such a level that we have more people applying to be law enforcement officers so that then we can make sure that we are hiring not just the best, but we're hiring law enforcement officers that look like our state as well. And then we need to be willing to do what Charleston has done and what some other communities done, and that is a racial audit of our local law enforcement departments. So we look internally to see what is happening so that we can prevent this before it occurs ever again. We need to make sure that we're not just coming together to sing Kumbaya, we're all on the same side, what we did is wrong. We need to say, and we are going to do this next. And what was so powerful about the rally that you spoke of, both in Rock Hill and Columbia yesterday and all across the country, is now's the time to do it. Now that everybody is literally holding hands together condemning what was wrong. We need to now say, this is what's right. And what's exciting is we've got an elections coming up in June and November for people to put their money where their mouth is, correct?
Yeah,
and they can vote their convictions, which puts people running for office on the spot, does it not? Because now you can ask me, what are you going to do as my elected official to make sure this doesn't happen again or this doesn't happen in Chester? What are you going to do as that? And even our sheriffs are elected in South Carolina. So I think voting is another part of this that we can't take for granted as a tool, as a weapon to use to make sure this doesn't happen again.
That's so true. And I think about, the importance of this conversation. My 15-year-old son said to me the other night, he said, Dad, why are these bad things happening and you're just complying and you're not doing anything wrong and bad things are still happening? And I'm like, son,
doesn't that hurt your heart?
I can't answer. Yeah. I'm in tears. I'm like, yo, this is real. I mean, you got an innocence of people. And I'm not saying that everybody is, is completely innocent. But I'm saying that the way that we go about things and the things that happen, it seems like there's a target and, we're falling prey to certain things. But I just, I lean on the faith that says that, God still has the final say. And, there are people like you and there are people like me that have platforms, and we've got to continue to open those platforms up and have those uncomfortable conversations at times.
Yes.
In order to get to where we need to get to. So that's what inspires and continues to motivate me. And that's why I can go out here and advocate, for a senator like you and say, hey, this is where you want to place your vote, because these are the morals and things that we came up on, that we want represented at our high and top levels.
Absolutely. And we got a sheriff's race, for example, coming up in Chester in November. And so you're talking about people getting a chance to vote for a sheriff when law enforcement is an example of a crisis going on right now in this nation. So there's so many ways that we can put that faith into action and put our faith into action and votes. And it's so important. So all of us can be a part of the solution. This is the first step is to make sure all of us are on the same side of agreeing that is wrong and it needs to stop. The second part of it is saying, well, what can we all do about it? You have a platform. So you're using your platform to reach more and more people to galvanize support. I've got an obligation as a senator to make sure that I'm voting in a way that ends that I'm introducing bills that stop that. I'm appointing judges that will end that. But people that vote have an obligation to make sure they vote in a way that puts people out of office or in office based on what they've seen. We all have to move from we now know it's wrong and evil to we all have to play a part in this. Remember King's famous message, I might just be a street sweeper, but I'm going to die being the best street sweeper that ever lived on the face of the earth. God's given us, each of us, some little role or responsibility that may seem minor to us, but when each one of us start working together, that's what he means about all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. If we each start within the realm that God has given us, working together towards ending something, God can do amazing things through us.
Amen to that. So Senator Fannin, as we wind down on time, I want to give you this time to say whatever you want to say to the people of South Carolina as well as the world who will be watching this. This allotted time is for you to close and make whatever statement that you want to say to the people.
James, first, I thank you. I've enjoyed seeing you out and about when I've been out in about places, and thank you for having this forum where you're able to bring issues out that people can talk about. Because if you think about it, people don't read newspapers anymore. People only watch their TV news anymore. And so having a forum that can probe conversations, I thank you for doing your part. And I thank you for allowing me to speak as well. I have had a blast. I hope people can enjoy. I'm not going to every event just because of an obligation. I'm going because I am having a great time. I enjoy it. And I think it's what we want to tell our kids. And you may be the same way. You want our kids to find a career that they love, because then it doesn't seem like they're going to work. They're doing something that they were put on earth to do. Now, they may get dog tired at the end of the day, but they're doing what they're called to do. I do feel like that God's put me in this place. I do think my path through teaching has helped me get to where I am today, but I'm having a blast going and meeting with folks and being with them at their school plays, at their ball games, at their church potluck dinner. I've enjoyed representing in the Senate, whether it be a 2-month filibuster or being able to do something locally. I am having a good time. It's hard to believe it's been 4 years, but I do need to ask for your vote. And I do need to remind you that June 9th, which is a week from Tuesday, we vote. And this is it. If I don't get the most votes on Tuesday, then I am still going to come to your church and eat your food, but I'll no longer be your senator. So we have one shot on June the 9th. There are multiple items on the ballot. I am one of them. I'm begging you, please don't forget this local election. Please go vote in the Democratic primary on June the 9th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in your local precinct. You can vote early in your voter registration office between now and then, but we do need to take advantage of this. I hope that you will allow me the pleasure of serving you for another 4 years and partnering with you to do the thing, to do the hard work that God set before us.
Definitely, Senator Fanning. Also, is there a number that people can reach out to you or ways to follow you on social media? How can they get in contact with you?
Absolutely. Our website is www.fanningforsc.com. Our Facebook, please follow me on Facebook. We've got about 15,000 followers, and that's just simply Mike Fanning. You can Google, go on Facebook, type Mike Fanning in, you'll get me. I update Facebook 2 or 3 times a day. We're getting information out constantly. A lot of the COVID-19 information is there. If you need to reach me, my personal cell phone number, 803-984-2933. That's 803-984-2933. My email address, fanningforsenate@gmail.com. And I mentioned this earlier. If somebody is struggling with unemployment, if they can get me a claim number and their phone number, let me help you and see if we can get that unemployment fast-tracked to help you. We've been able to help some folks on that as well.
Awesome, man. Sounds good. Senator Mike Fanning, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on the Elite Life Show. We look forward. You're not going to be a stranger. We're going to have you back soon.
Will you have me back?
We'll definitely have you back soon. And
awesome.
I'll definitely be in touch with you before the election. If there's anything that we can do as far as helping you, in campaign or on the grounds, please don't hesitate to let us know.
Well, I appreciate it. I will tell you right now, the informal polling we're doing, 90% of the people in Fairfield, Chester, and York County don't know there's an election on June 9th. So getting that word out about there is an election on the 9th, that is the #1 help we need. So I appreciate it.
What I'll do is if you can send me a digital thing on the election, we will put it out on all of our social media, all of our Facebook pages, and get that word out there because we definitely want people to come out and vote.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you.
Definitely. So you've been watching the interview with Senator Mike Fanning here on the Elite Life Show. We're finna go to a commercial break. Stay tuned. All right, we back from the break, y'all. Definitely incredible interview with Senator Mike Fanning. Appreciate him coming on the Elite Life Show. Again, y'all, if you want to get in touch with us, send us an email, elitelife57@gmail.com. Also, go to our website, www.tnenetworks.com. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel, t.en.e networks LLC @gmail.com, or hit the TNE Networks subscribe thing on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. Several ways to do that. Also, tune into our Brave Talk Show. They're dropping new episodes, and they're also on the website as well. Plus, we have great shows coming, coming soon as well, y'all. So stay tuned to TNE Networks because we got big things to come. But for this Elite Life Show, we're at the close, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate everybody. And remember this, we can go 8 minutes without oxygen, but we can't go 1 second without God. Take care, y'all. God bless.